Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Gavin. I'm a career coach at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School. If you could just introduce yourself, that'd be great.
My name is Laura Hambleton.
It's nice to meet you. Where do you work?
I am Director of Advancement Communications and Marketing for the Smithsonian here in Washington, D.C.
Awesome, very cool. What are your RIASEC themes?
Yes, these are new terms for me, so I'm very interested in them. And I guess I would describe myself as artistic, investigative, and realistic.
Awesome, very cool. Can you tell a little about yourself and your professional background?
Yes. So, as I said, I run a communications team at the Smithsonian. It's a team of three writers, three graphic designers, and a production manager, and myself. And we produce a number of products. We do publications, videos. A lot of our work is really towards advancing fundraising priorities at the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian is a quasi-government agency or government entity. It's a museum complex of 21 museums, 9 research centers, and the National Zoo. And about 60% of the funding for the Smithsonian um, comes from the federal government or from you, actually, taxpayers from Congress. And then another 40% comes from private support, individuals, corporations, foundations. And that's the section I work for, kind of the nonprofit side of the institution. And I help colleagues across the institution shape their stories, tell their stories, communicate, and try to advance their priorities, whether it's mounting an exhibition, doing research into climate change or biodiversity, or taking the first image of the black hole. My portfolio of work is huge and wonderfully diverse. The Smithsonian is both an academic institution as well as a real research powerhouse. As I've sort of mentioned, there's a lot of look at or measuring over time the effects of, for instance, excess carbon in our atmospheres and what's the effect on trees and oceans, et cetera. So I came to the job after I've been at the Smithsonian for about 10 years, a little more. My background prior to that is as a journalist, and I've also made documentary films. Though I did start out my career as working in art galleries. I studied art history in college. And that's what I thought I wanted to do with my life. And then from there, I actually got into journalism because I started writing and doing art reviews for a small newspaper in New England. And that kind of led me into a broader career in journalism. I've run an arts newspaper where I actually had to sell ads, do the stories, do the distribution. And then I've worked at magazines in New York. And then I wrote a column for the health and science section of the Washington Post. So, much in life, you don't really see the through line until you're a little older, as I am. And you look back and you think, okay, there's the roadmap. There's like, I see that. So I would say I'm a storyteller, and that's kind of how I started out, thinking, one, I was going to go do this more academic route in art galleries, and then kind of took a turn. So that's a little bit about me and
Awesome, very cool.
my journey in the work world.
That's a very cool journey. Thank you. At your current job now, can you discuss a project or accomplishment you're particularly proud of?
Yeah. So as I said, my background is in journalism. I was hired at the Smithsonian. Some of it because I had this background in journalism and lots of writing experience, and I was hired to kind of humanize the voice of the Smithsonian. Again, communications is very important for an institution, for any organization. It's kind of a hidden field in that it's not the first thing. You might have a company that they're full of engineers, they're putting up solar panels, or even again at a museum that you might go visit, you don't realize all of the hidden things that happen, and one of them is communications, and that's again finding the voice for the institution and how it presents itself to the world. And that's what some of what I was hired to do, is to put this human voice, to not have like speak as an institution, and also to reveal the stories at the Smithsonian. There's real people doing real work at the Smithsonian on behalf of the American public. So that, so in that long way of saying, my one thing I'm most proud of is taking a lot of our publications, making them much more readable and accessible and entertaining for a broad audience at the Smithsonian. Also doing a lot of, I've learned a lot and had to jump feet first into creating videos and whatnot. Again, I have a background in that, but that's, I've had to learn just a lot more how to work with a production crew, how to really shape and shorten video scripts, how to interview people and make them comfortable on camera, as we're doing right now. So yeah.
Awesome.
And again, all of the things that I've done in the past kind of have come to bear in what I'm doing currently.
Very cool. Is there like a specific education or training that you have that help prepare you for this role now?
Yeah, that's a good question, Gavin. So thank you. I am a firm believer in liberal arts,
Mhm.
and trying to study, when you have the opportunity, a wide range of subjects. Um, I think then specifically, it's always good then to try to get a little deeper education and training. So mine was in writing. I've done early in my career, I did a writing program. I've done lots of classes. Again, at one of the newspapers where I worked very closely with a writing coach. So I think that, again, what has been helpful for me, because I'm not in a super technical, I'm not not an engineer. I'm actually, when I'm making videos, I'm not running the camera or doing the editing. I have to have this very broad view of things, and I have to figure out how to tell the story. So my education was broad though. And then I was able to go a little deeper, and really, I learned a lot on the job. And I think there's a lot of merit to that, learning on the job. And one way to do that is to just be very open-minded. And if someone, if an assignment comes up, I raise my hand. I did that a lot in the very beginning of my career at the Smithsonian. Can someone write this proposal? Can someone do this? I always raised my hand. Just to have the experience. And that is one thing that I think does come in. That's a value. That's something that's valued by
Hmm.
organizations. Be open and willing and curious. I
Hmm.
think that's one of the number one things when I'm hiring somebody. That's what I look for, number one,
Hmm.
in a person.
Awesome. Cool. So you've already kind of touched on this, right? With saying how you continue to be open, curious, and willing. Are there any other things you do to continue to learn and grow professionally?
Yeah, that's again, another really good question. And I thought about that a little bit. Um, you know, Yes, I mean, I'm in a privileged place at the Smithsonian in that it's this quasi-academic institution. So I have the opportunity to talk on a daily basis with an astrophysicist,
Mm,
a conservation biologist, a curator of African art or American art. So I am constantly learning through my job. I am constantly reading and looking up background. And I've also, because I'm in the room with, super smart people, I have myself have um, learned how to ask stupid questions and not to be embarrassed.
mhm,
That, could you, because I'm trying to take big complex ideas and translate them to a broader audience. So I'm always having to distill what people say. That's a lot of what I do, how to boil it down and try to make it compelling. So
mm,
I am, I ask people all the time, could you just, like, what do you mean by that? And how did that really work? And I didn't really understand that. And again, being open to, like, so it's kind of a silly question, but I have to do it. So for me to understand, I need to understand complex issues or ideas or work
mhm.
for my job. So again, that's it is just remaining open, humble, and willing to ask dumb questions.
There you go. There you go. Can you discuss the time when you had to think innovative or think creatively to solve a problem at work?
Yeah. Well, one thing, as I said, I run this communications team that's 3 writers, 3 designers, and a production manager, the person who kind of keeps the trains running and makes sure all the projects are on time and we're following deadlines. Um, of late, or a few months ago, probably 6 months ago, 2 of the key people on my team, have left for other great opportunities. So I've had to figure out, okay, how do I do this production manager job? I've had to kind of put that hat on. And a lot of that job is writing what we call requests for quotes. I work a lot with outside people, outside freelance writers, freelance photographers, freelance video production people. So I've had to really learn how to write a purchase order or a statement of work, and again, it's the more nuts and bolts part of my job. I was kind of hired because more for my, as we said in the beginning, artistic, investigative,
Mhm,
um, skills, less on my administrative, how do I, keeping track of budgets, keeping track of purchase orders. So it wasn't necessarily that I was thinking creatively. I was having to, again, be open to the work and expand my skills. And also to figure out on my team who could help me out until I could hire other people. So again, um, a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis, I look at deadlines that are right ahead of me, what I need to accomplish. I also have to think far in advance because I'm doing publications, I'm doing videos for events that are due in 6 months. I'm having to, my focus has to be both bird-like,
mhm,
from a high up, as a bird flies over and sees the full landscape, to down to like an ant,
mhm.
sees the very ground
Hmm.
that is before
Very
him.
cool. Awesome. Thank you. I guess we'll end on maybe a little fun question. What's the strangest or most unexpected task you've ever had to do at work?
Mm. Mm. Well, um, I think that again, because I have the privilege of working at the Smithsonian, and there's an environmental research center that's close to Annapolis, the National Zoo, which, for the average person, the zoo is just going and seeing, animals that are usually in the wild and in captivity. I have had never expected this to go behind the scenes at the zoo and be a part of feeding the animals, caring for the animals, having a day with the animals. Again, when you think of a communications job,
Mhm.
that's not what you think of. But again, at a place like the Smithsonian, you really do have, you're always being put into situations
Mhm.
where you don't realize that.
Awesome. That's
Yeah,
very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so
yeah.
much for your time. It's great hearing about your work. Sounds